Hi and welcome back to the channel. We are going to talk about self-discovery, and in this self-discovery we are writing a list of at least 25 things that we're grateful for from our childhood. Now, to give you an idea of what I have written from mine, it's not in any specific order, but well, this is how it come out of my head. Anyway, number one is family. So I'm talking about not just my immediate family, is also my aunts and uncles and grandparents and stuff like that. Two was animals. I can remember as a kid in always having animals. We either had dogs or birds. I don't think we had any cats when I was really younger, but we did have later on. But I remember my dad had a budgie aviary, which is a small bird, and he would breed them, and finches, and we would have pet birds, and we have cockatiels, and we always had dogs as far as I remember. Number three, spending time making things and fixing things. My parents didn't have a lot of money to start with, so they were always into, or dad especially was into fixing things. So, a worn out bike, he'll change that and spray it up. He would make a dollhouse, or we'll always be into some sort of crafts or something to do with our hands. Number four, Daddy's little girl. Now, I was Daddy's little girl and Daddy's little boy, I felt like it. And this is from my point of view. So I do have a sister. So from her point of view, I think she was closer to my mum than my dad when we were littler. But I was sort of followed my dad around and helped him out and did all the boys things, with the hammers and all that sort of stuff. So I do remember that and was grateful for that as a child. Friends. Now, I had girlfriends, which I don't have a lot these days. I had girlfriends. I had a male friend who was a very good friend who I used to go out with a lot and would go away and all that sort of stuff. Not a boyfriend, but he was a male friend. So I had some really good friends, a small circle, but some really good friends. Freedom of being able to walk around before dark. Now, I remember walking to my friend's house, which was through like these bush, sort of like a creek, like vines, long grass, trees, everything like that. And I'd walk there to her place, hang out at her place, and then walk back before dark. We had to be back before dark. That was the only sort of deal. But we weren't sort of worried. Parents weren't worried as long as we were back before dark. We didn't worry about walking through the bushes and stuff like that. And I don't think I'd do that these days. So I'm very grateful that we did have that freedom. Number seven, falling in love. Um, Childhood memories of falling in love, and the heartache of falling out of love, and all that sort of stuff. So I'm really grateful for having those experiences. Um, Being number eight is being naive about the troubles of the world. We didn't really have much insight about issues, politics, religion, um, all the things that seem to be flare up if you open your mouth about these days. We just didn't really have a care about that sort of stuff. It wasn't on our radar. Is in not that we didn't care about people, but we just wasn't on our radar. We're after having a good time and socializing, and just having fun. Number nine, I've got looking forward to making plans for the future. Now, I'm in my mid 50s now, so when you're younger, you think you've got a lifetime to plan what you want to do, where you want to go, who you want to be, and all that sort of stuff. And that seems to be, you don't have like 30 years left of your life or whatever. You've got thousands of years, it feels like it. Not that it was, but it did feel like it. Number 10, thinking that you could do or be anything in the world. And I do remember my dad saying, if you work hard enough, you can have anything, sort of thing. That sort of, not those exact words, but along those lines. And I think we were brought up with, we have the possibility of having, being anything or anyone that we wanted to in the world. So it's a good feeling. 11. Dad and me, horror nights. My dad and I used to go out on, I think it was a Friday night. It might have been when my sister wasn't living at home anymore. My mum used to work on a Friday night, and my dad and myself used to go to the video shop. We'd get all these horror movies, and we'd come home, and I'd sit in mum's chair. It was a recliner, and he'd sit in his chair, and he'd have box of chocolates beside his chair, and his cat would be sitting on his lap, and I'd be the next chair sitting there with a blanket right up here, going like this all night, watching these horror movies, or like this, because either I could watch the movie but not hear the music, or I could hear the music and not watch the movie. So I enjoyed it to the point where I just could not watch horror movies anymore. That scared me so much. I can now watch a horror movie, but back then it wasn't. But they were good nights. It was good nights, dad and daughter sort of thing. And my dad also taught me how to knit, so that was something. Number 12, Mum and Me. My mum and I used to sing. She would turn on the record player or the stereo in the lounge room, and our washing line was quite a big distance away from the house, so she turned the volume up. We had a fairly big property, but there wasn't a lot of people around, so she'd turn the music up, and we'd go out to the washing lines, and we'd be singing the songs. There used to be old songs, back from probably more her days than my generation, but the old songs, and we'd be hanging the washing out on the line and singing along and that. So that was something I really do remember, and I was grateful for. Number 13, my sister and I, we would fight. We fought a lot. But we'd be fighting, and Dad would come in and tell us off, and then we would go off and gang up on Dad, and Dad's told us off, and we'd be together and best chummy things, and talking about Dad's not being fair and all this sort of stuff. And so we had our little sister and thing. Number 14, Christmas get-togethers. Our Christmas used to be that the family, my family, as in my mum and my dad, my sister, and I would at our house have all the aunts and uncles over and the cousins over to our place to do a Christmas thing, and Dad would be Father Christmas and hand out the presents that everyone would bring and that. So we would do in the morning at our place was just the immediate family, and then lunchtime it was the aunts and uncles and cousins, and then all the uncles and my dad and everything would all fall asleep after lunch. All the males would fall asleep while the females would clean up and chat and all that sort of stuff. So I do remember that sort of thing. Number 15 is knowing that you are safe and loved. I don't know. Look, my parents told me I love you and all that sort of stuff, and that, so there was affection there, but I think you always knew that you were safe and that they loved you, and that there was no doubt in my mind that my parents loved us, and that. So it's not everyone has that opportunity to feel that way, but we definitely, well, I definitely did. So what else we got? Number 16, my first car. I wanted a Mazda 929. It's a sports model. My auntie had separated from her partner. I'm pretty sure that they'd been married, so it must have been her husband, and was going out with this Italian guy, which she's still with, and I was younger, and he drove this Mazda 929 sports car, and I fell in love with it, and that's what I always wanted. So when I turned 18, or just before I turned 18, we were on a lookout for this Mazda, and my dad rang me up one day and said, there's a there's a Mazda here, 929 here for you, and it's blue, which was my favourite colour, and all this sort of stuff. So I went down to his work. My mum took me down to his work, and we're looking in the car park, and we can't see this Mazda anywhere that he's talking about, no blue car. Go in, and it was a purple Mazda 929 station wagon. It wasn't even sporty, and it would have been a paddock basher. Basically, a guy had owned it and who lived on a farm and used it to travel to around where we were and swap over for a new car. So he wanted to get rid of it. So it was a $2,000 car. My dad and I end up stripping it down, sanding it back. We turned it blue. We did turn it blue, and that was my car until my first husband wrote it off. Anyway, love that car. 17, birthday parties. When I was little, we had birthday parties, and you had your friends around, and you played, pass a parcel, and you played games and all that sort of stuff. And I do so much appreciate being able to have that sort of thing. You had sleepovers and that. It was different when I brought my kids up. The games weren't the same and that sort of stuff. And I think the generations now is going to be even different for kids and as far as parties are concerned. But I do appreciate the parties that we used to have. 18, health and flexibility. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. How can I say this? Health-wise, I felt great. I felt great as a young person. I felt great in my 20s and all that sort of stuff. Flexible, very flexible. I could do the splits. I went to gym. I swam. I did a whole lot of stuff, and I was very flexible. And I really do appreciate my health, especially in the years now where I've had issues, where I've had broken ribs or cracked ribs and herniated disc and osteoporosis and all this sort of stuff. So I do appreciate my health and the flexibility I had before. 19, seeing the good in everyone and everything. I think I wanted to see that everybody was good and that everything was okay, and I did that with the sacrifice of my own happiness sometimes. It made me happy that other people were happy. It still does make me happy that other people are happy. I tend not to let them walk all over me as much these days. I tend to put my foot down when I don't agree with something. But I felt like everybody had good in them, and I think your eyes get open a lot, especially those last few years, that people can be nasty, people can be bad and that. So I think a little bit naive when you're younger too, which makes you think that everybody's just wonderful. 20, wearing a dress and shopping. Now, let me say this. When you're talking about someone who's got a very slender figure, and that which I did, I looked good in dresses. I had lovely legs and all this sort of stuff. I loved going shopping. I loved buying shoes and dresses and tops and clothes and all that. I hardly do any of that now. Partly because of the size I am now, and partly because we live in a caravan and we are sort of limited to what clothes that we can wear. But it's more the size, I would say. I'm trying to get out of black. If you ever see my other channel, I just wear black all the time. I don't think there's one video where I'm not wearing a black top in it. So that's partly what I enjoyed. 21, bouncing off walls. Now, I explained that I had so much energy. I used to literally say I bounced off walls. You could bottle my energy and give it to 100 people and I'd still have more energy. I was so much alive. I love the energy. I love the pace. It brought it. And that wasn't just when I was younger. It's also when I was in my 20s. I was very energetic and that. So Really do appreciate having that. 22, dancing on tables. Now, I used to always say I don't need to drink to have fun because I can dance on tables without it. I wasn't a drink up until I turned 18. I drank up until I was 18. But once I turned 18, I didn't drink. And I didn't really care that I didn't drink. And I still to this day don't drink. I will have a lemon, lime, and bitters now and again. I will have a cruiser, which is vodka and raspberry. But it's literally once a year, maybe if I'm lucky. I think I had twice in 6 months when we were traveling last year. I had a drink, but then prior to that, I probably didn't have a drink for 5-10 years. So I'm not a drinker, and I used to know how to enjoy myself and have fun without it. 23, weekend picnics and picking mushrooms. I don't like mushrooms. I don't like eating mushrooms. But we used to go on these picnics for the family, which was my aunties and my nana and my parents and that. And we would go to a destination, and along the way sometimes we'd stop and pick mushrooms. We would sneak into people's paddocks and pick mushrooms. I don't say you should do it these days. And I don't think you should eat mushrooms these days unless you know what you're doing. But we'd pick mushrooms, and we would go to picnics, and my nana would always make this beautiful sponge cake with passion fruit icing on the top and fresh cream, and we'd have barbecue, and it was just a good get together and family time. So I really appreciate the times that we spent together, because as we got older, we didn't do any of that. We went we did stuff with our own kids and that, but we didn't sort of do much with the family. 24, fun with Pete. I've got a cousin named Peter, and he's 10. Let me think. He's about 10 years older than me. He might have been a little bit more, but he's 10 years older than me. And I remember when I was 9, 10, 11, whatever, we used to go out. So it would be my mother and my father, myself and Pete. And we would go to places. We went to Adelaide together. We were going to go on a cruise together. All this sort of stuff. And my cousin used to like to get a bit of a reaction from people, and we would be walking down the street arm in arm, there's 10 years difference, and you could obviously tell I always had a younger look too, which like I looked a lot younger than what I was as well. And he'd be walking down, and you'd see people looking us up and down and going, oh, what's going on? And he would go, honey, we've got to get home because the kids don't like being with your mother and all this sort of stuff. And he would just like to shock people. We had a good time. We still do when we get together. We still do. So 25 is places we went and things we saw. So we went to, while I was younger, we went to Tasmania, we went to Queensland, it's not just places, it's in states in Australia that we went to. Mum and Dad would take us to shops, they would take us to attractions and that, and which was probably extra special since my parents didn't have a lot of money that they saved up for it to go. So we did get to see a lot, and we did get to do a lot. We were very fortunate in that thing. So I'm very happy with that. And I just want to add one more that I thought of in the car today is music. I still love the music from the 70s and the 80s, and that I do like some of the music from today as well, but the music from the generation where you're growing up actually brings back memories and that. So that's for me the list of 25 things from my childhood that makes me grateful. And it's part of my self-discovery that it did take a bit to come out with. I'm wondering what your self-discovery will be, but it sort of brings back the thought of being grateful. For me, I had a good childhood, so for me, for being grateful with what I had and what I experienced. I wonder what it brings for you. And to the next self-discovery card, check out the next video. Bye.